Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how to work from anywhere in the world as an executive and the 3 things you really need to consider to turn it from just being an idea that you would love to have someday to actually a reality that you can live. Now, it might look like I'm in the Switzerland, but I'm not. I'm actually in Hout Bay, just outside of Cape Town in South Africa. So you may have thought like, oh, it would be fantastic if I could do this, and you're an executive and you know you're valued and you're paid well by your company, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily have the freedom, flexibility, and autonomy you want. And you don't really want to have to wait until you're 65. Retirement age might be even higher by the time you're at that stage. You don't want to have to wait till then to start enjoying your life, to going to the places you want, especially when you're already working so hard. And particularly for my American friends watching this, who maybe only get 10 days, 2 weeks per year. It's a little different in other parts of the world, but still, you're limited by when you can take a holiday, how much holiday you can take. And they want you often just in the office to be there to drive the team forward and do these things. So how do you actually transition away from that and do this? And the main point is you need to have autonomy, okay? And the 3 steps I'm going to share with you are all about giving you that and thinking about how you have the most autonomy to be able to do that, taking the skills and knowledge you've got and turning it into a lifestyle where you can have this flexibility, okay? So the first point is, in order to have that autonomy, it doesn't really even matter if the company that you're currently working with offers this, because they can always change their mind. Thousands of people, especially at the senior level, have seen this after the pandemic. We saw during the pandemic that we were able to work more flexibly and from different parts of the world and use Zoom meetings and still collaborate. Yes, it was a different type of working, but you were still able to be effective. And lots of times productivity actually went up. People enjoyed that extra flexibility that they had. But now research is showing that more and more companies are not really trusting people to maintain at that. They kind of allowed it because it was forced upon them, but now they're asking people back into offices. And people are waking up and realizing, I actually don't want to do that. I don't feel like I need to be in this office building or live in this expensive city that's causing me to have to go on a commute every day when I could just work from anywhere and get more done and enjoy myself elsewhere. And so companies can always change their mind. And so you need to bear that in mind when you're thinking about actually turning this into a reality, that having a job as an executive, even though it's fantastic, maybe in terms of the high pay, you still have a lot of long hours, and usually they will always have that control of being able to ask you to come and do something that you're maybe not comfortable with if you don't have another option, okay? So very rarely will you have the flexibility to be anywhere you want in the world, because that's another thing in terms of if you want to be in a completely different time zone to where the headquarters are or the hours that they expect you to work, that's going to change everything as well. So that's the first big one. The second thing is that, okay, well, if you're not going to be working for someone else, because that automatically means you don't have that big point we said at the start, autonomy, that means you're going to have your own business or your own thing you control in some way, okay? Now, if you go and do that, if you go into any form of traditional business, then usually you're going to have a location and a site, and you're going to have to be going back then, going into the office and checking on people and doing those things. So again, you don't have the freedom and flexibility. And you may think, well, I'll just get the business to run without me. And that's fantastic. That's what you should aim to do. But it usually takes 3, 4, 5 years, even longer. And that's if you do everything right, before you've got the systems in place, the team in place, and everything else you need. So if you are expecting to start a traditional business in the industry or you've got some other idea here, and you're expecting to quickly have the flexibility and freedom to go and travel and be anywhere you want, then I would say you need perhaps a little reality check in what it takes to actually establish and run a business, okay? And that's one of the reasons we work with lots of people, helping them become business coaches, because it's so tough to do that. People need guidance along the way. Okay, so I would say the second point is it's virtually impossible to do this soon if you are starting a traditional business. Okay, and that leads on to the third point. So if you tick the first 2 boxes, the third step is, let's say you're going to run an online business or some form of remote work in some way, even if you negotiate some kind of fractional role or something like that, which a whole other video about that, about the drawbacks of doing a fractional role and what people fall into, just working more hours for less pay. But if you're going a non-traditional route where you can work online and you're being perhaps a business coach or something like that, then there's other things you need to think about. You want to think about, okay, is this just to be able to have the flexibility to work from home and enjoy that and do the things you want to do there? Or is it that you actually want to be able to go and travel and live elsewhere? Like, is it that you're just going to go away for 6 weeks or 2 months or 3 months, a year, and then you're going to return home and have your home base? Or are you actually going to want to move and live somewhere else completely? Because once you've got that flexibility, then you can do that. And there's massive freedom with being able to actually do that, because you can change your cost of living hugely as well. So if you no longer have to be in San Francisco because you're in the tech space, the money that you were earning before, that if you can have a way to replace that, can be completely different lifestyle that you can have by living in a different part of the US or living in a completely different country as well. It's one of the reasons I enjoy being in South Africa so much, because the income goes so far in order to be able to do it. And then there's other things you need to think about in terms of local tax and stuff like that, but it's really deciding what you want your life to look like at that point. So for example, some of the business coaches that we've worked with, Paul Brooksbank, for example, when he made this transition, Paul wanted to spend more time skiing with his family. So after becoming a business coach and starting that path as a non-traditional, as a business coach, he didn't have to be in one specific location, because clients were more comfortable when you position the relationship right with being coached online, on Zoom, and doing things like that. So he was able to go to the south of France for 3 months, work in the morning while his family were sleeping, and do some client calls and just get that done and out the way, and then spend the rest of the time, as you see in this picture here, just enjoying the mountains, enjoying the snow, enjoying everything there. Okay, so that's one approach where he's actually taken the family for 3 months and still able to get work done and then come back. Okay, you could have another approach like that where once you've got the flexibility, you aren't just needing to actually do the work during that time. You can maybe even take more time off, but you're able to earn income throughout the rest of the year doing it. But an entirely different approach is someone who just wants to enjoy being home, but work the way they want to work. So for example, another coach of ours, Emerson, one day it was a beautiful sunny day in England, and so he wanted to enjoy it, but he also wanted to do some client calls. So he grabbed his phone and was just making phone calls from the jacuzzi, signing clients, coaching clients, helping them grow their business. So obviously, there may be the odd time where as an executive, you're able to do that, but as a consistent thing, being able to live your life in that way, it's not likely that you'd be able to do that on your own. To recap, the main critical factors that I said is, first of all, is the key thing is to have autonomy yourself, because you never know at what point these companies will change their mind. And then you never know, if you then aren't happy with the change that they make, whether you're going to be able to establish another job elsewhere that does give you the things you want. So for example, my first ever job, I was able to work from home, living just outside of London. And then later they changed their policy in terms of they wanted me in the office more often. So I had to actually change towns, because it wasn't even close. It was like an hour and a half away, and live there and then commute in every day. And lots of executives are now seeing that after the pandemic, where they thought they now had some of the flexibility they wanted, being called back in. So that's the first big thing you've got to cover. Second, as I said, you've got to think about non-traditional businesses so that you can, from day one, have flexibility. That's the key, because it's not going to happen fast in a traditional business. And those kind of businesses are usually going to be some online business, selling services, selling information, doing that type of thing. And most of the time as executives, you're fastest at doing e-commerce, but the best thing you can do as an executive is actually do some form of consulting business coaching, and I explain that in other videos. So if you want to learn about that, you can subscribe to see why that is the fastest, most effective path for you. And the third thing is really deciding how then you want to live your life. Do you just want to have the flexibility to be at home, go on vacation a bit more often, or do you want to actually want to relocate? Or relocate for a few months, or completely change country and go live elsewhere, go get residency in different countries to completely change tax and everything like that. So there's lots of videos elsewhere that I'll share with you how you actually take the practical steps to build a non-traditional business that doesn't require a team, that is very high cash flow, that the income is recurring, so that you can quickly go and enjoy a beautiful view like this and be actually living life before you have to retire, actually enjoying it, earning and living at the same time. I'll share that in all the other videos on the actual process to do that. But in making this transition, those are the three big things that you need to consider. And if you don't consider these things, what will happen is you'll never get clarity on what is possible. And so you won't take the first step to then learn how to do it. So this is actually one of the biggest steps to understand the importance of why you would want to do this in the first place. Like, is it that you just want to be able to decide your own schedule? Is it that there are places in the world you would love to see and not have to wait until you're 70 to do it? Is it that you would love to be like Paul and skiing with your family every afternoon because you've got a passion for doing that, or you want your kids to grow up seeing the different world? When you do that and answer that question first, it gives you the motivation to go and look at all these other areas. So make sure you've subscribed, watch the other videos, and I look forward to bumping into you in Switzerland, in Cape Town, or one of these other countries around the world.